This demonstration is about understanding resolution. First, open your file. I'm going to open a lesson file. In this example, I will open a file called 01a end.psd. To look at the resolution, go up to Image, Image Size, and notice that there are two main sections labeled Pixel Dimensions right here and Document Size. The pixel dimensions literally define the number of pixels in the image by width and height. You can see here width and height. To get a better understanding of what that means, you can multiply the width times height to get the total number of pixels in a document. In this example, 2,304 times 3,456 equals 7,962,624 total pixels, or they're also referred to as picture elements. The total number of pixels also represents the amount of data in the document. The more data you have, the more possibilities you have for multiple types of media output. An important concept to understand about the pixel dimension values right here is that because it represents the maximum amount of pixel data in the native document, the original document, you should not increase these values. Increasing the pixel dimensions will artificially increase the file size, leaving holes in the image to compensate for the lack of original data. Photoshop will then resample the pixels around the holes to make a best guess as to how to fill in the missing data. And this process is called interpolation, and it can result in a choppy, pixelated looking image. The other section, Document Size, right here, will help you adjust the resolution based on the final media output. While this correlates with the pixel dimensions, it can be independently adjusted so that the pixel dimensions are not affected. If you deselect the Resample Image checkbox, you will see that the pixel dimensions become grayed out up here, and they're unadjustable. This will prevent any changes to the actual amount of data in the document. Changing the document size should not affect the pixel dimensions unless you are intentionally trying to reduce the amount of data in the document. While the Resample Image box is deselected, you can modify the document size area to achieve your target size. For print, a common good quality resolution is 300 pixels per inch, so if it's important to hit a target resolution, adjust the resolution value while Resample is deselected. Notice that when I changed the resolution from 72 to 300, that the document width and height shrank from 32 inches by 48 inches to what you see here, 7.68 inches by 11.52 inches. If we change that back, you'll see it goes back to the transformation, and then let's go back to 300 again, and then you see it goes back to what I just mentioned. This is because we're rearranging the same existing amount of data, which is up here unchanged, so that it will produce a higher quality print, thus compacting the print size. Also notice that the file size doesn't change right here, where it says pixel dimensions 22.8 megabytes. This is because we are not altering the amount of data, we're only rearranging it down here in the document size. There's a direct relationship between the document size resolution and its media output size, which would be right there. An easy way to think of it is that if you double the resolution, the document output size will shrink by about half. For instance, let's say that if we go back to having a resolution of 72 ppi at 32 inches by 48 inches, we can assume that when we increase the resolution to 150 ppi, which is approximately doubling it, that the width and the height will shrink to approximately half the print size in width and height. So let's try that. Let's go to 150, and then you see that in fact that's correct. At 150 ppi we now have a 15.36 inch by 23.04 inch image, which is roughly half of 32 by 48. If we double the resolution again to 300 ppi, we arrive at our 7.68 by 11.52 inch image print size again. A general rule of thumb is that 72 ppi is standard for screen media, like web and PowerPoints. 150 ppi is a decent resolution for most laser printers, and 300 ppi is appropriate for quality printing on inkjet printers or four-color presses. Some printing processes require 600 ppi, 720 ppi, and possibly higher for extremely high-quality art prints and books. You can also try to target a specific print size. If you have an image and you need to see if it'll work at a specific print dimension, you would, as we've done here, deselect the resample image box and adjust the width or the height, while constrained proportions is also selected, which it's selected here. So let's say, for instance, that we have to fit this picture sort of like in a 5x6 type of frame. Well, since this is the tallest dimension and we're looking at a 5x6, we would try to see what would happen if we changed this to 6 inches. And then you would see that this would in fact be printing at a 4x6, so you would have a little extra space on the sides. But also you'll notice that it bumped the resolution up to 576 ppi, which is a really high quality. But let's say that we need to print it at a much larger size. Let's say that we need to do something like, I don't know, 24 inches high, like a poster size. And you can see that that drops our resolution down to 144 ppi, which, is really not that great. It really depends on what the purpose of the poster is. If someone's going to be looking at it up close, then this is a terrible resolution for print. If it's only going to be something that's going to be to try to attract attention from really far away, you might be able to get away with it for like a laser printer. But if, let's say that this was for a high quality photograph that you wanted to blow up pretty largely, then this resolution would not work. Okay? This will tell you what your effective document resolution would be at this print size, and you will know immediately if the quality is good enough or not for a quality resolution print. Now, typically images taken from websites are not good enough quality for printing at reasonable sizes, unless you're downloading stock photos or high-resolution free images from sources like, for instance, morguefile.com. The reason for this, as I said before, is because the standard target web resolution is 72 ppi. Screen output images, unlike print output, are good at 72 ppi because it is the lowest common denominator for how many pixels it would fit vertically and horizontally within an inch of space in electronic displays. Anything larger would have to literally take up more real estate at 100% on the screen in order to display all of the pixels. So let's say that you're designing for the web and you want to save our image out to the correct resolution. We can change the resolution here to 72, but notice that the pixel dimensions up here and the file size are still huge and unchanged. We can now select the resample image box so that we can make the pixel dimensions up here match the screen dimensions that we actually want. Let's say we want the picture to only be 300 pixels tall, so I'd go down to height. Anyway, so that it fits nicely on most screens. And notice that by resampling the pixel dimensions down, the file size up here goes from 22.8 megabytes to only 175.8 kilobytes. That's a huge difference. And that's what's really important whenever you're looking at doing web kinds of images, is that you want smaller file sizes. And this makes the file much more manageable for the web, but if you save the original file like this, it will forever destroy the original data that was there before. So be very careful not to overwrite your original image in case you need a larger version later. So click OK, and you will see how much tinier it is on the screen now because the pixel dimensions are reduced. And because Photoshop is still only showing the image at a fraction of its actual size on screen. If we go down here and we change the percentage to 100, you see that it's going to put it at its actual size. You can either enter 100% down here, or you could also press Command 1, or on a Windows computer, Control 1. Now, do not simply save your file. You will forever lose your original data if you do that. Instead, go up to File and then choose Save for Web, and it will allow you to choose the type of file type and compression that you want. It'll also ensure that if the file is currently at a higher PPI than 72, it'll save out at the target resolution of 72 by default, because it understands that web images are always going to be at 72. So technically you didn't really even have to go back and change the resolution to 72, because this feature, Save for Web, will do it for you. Okay, and so if we wanted to actually save something for the web, like as a JPEG for instance, the one on the left is the original and the one on the right is what it would look like saved out as a JPEG. And over here you can choose if you want it to be a JPEG or a GIF or whatever. You want to probably choose JPEG in this case. And you can choose the compression rate. 100% means that, for quality, means that it has as little compression as possible, and the lower the quality is, the more compression it creates. Basically, it'll throw some data away to compress it. And so you can look at it at 100% and see if it's an acceptable quality here, and it also shows you how big the file size would be down here. And so if you wanted to go ahead and do that, you could click the Save button and tell it where to save it. Okay, I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to hit cancel, but that's how you can save images out for the web. Instead, what you could do is go back to image size, okay, and you could change your dimensions here, but let's say that you just wanted to start over fresh and you don't want to have to monkey with any of these things. Hit cancel, and then you can go up to Window and then choose History, and then you see a couple of things here. You've got Open, you've got Image Size. If I click on the Open, it'll take me back to when I first opened the file, and it'll give me all of my original dimensions. So now if I go back up to Image Size, you see that in fact I've got my width is back to 2,304 pixels by 3,456 pixels. Okay, and we've got those document sizes that we remembered from earlier. Okay, so that's one of the ways that you can reset your image back if you think that you maybe messed some stuff up. That's only going to work, however, while you have a file currently open. Once you close that file, alright, once you close the file, it's done. You can't actually go to history again and change it once you close it and then reopen it. The history is only good as long as the file is open. Okay? So that's the lesson on resolution. If you're not sure about any of the things that we discussed, I encourage you to go back and watch it again.